Hello, my name is Mrs. Campbell. I work here at West Acton Primary School. Some of you might know me as a Year 6 teacher. I'm also the Year 6 group lead. As well as that, I'm part of the English team, helping children to raise standards in reading and handwriting across the school in particular. So today I'd like to share with you some information about how we teach handwriting at our school. Another new trial that we have tested out this year. Well, we tested it out last year in Year 6 and we rolled it out throughout the school this year to help develop and raise standards in handwriting so that our children have the good writing skills that they need that are age appropriate for their years. So thank you for joining me today as I go through our policy. So handwriting is taught as part of the English curriculum. The programme of study is part of the whole national curriculum. There are end of year expectations set for each year group, which I will go through today. Each year group plans out how to teach handwriting lessons to match the needs of your child in relation to these age-related expectations. So every teacher and every year group would know what's expected for their year group for the end of year, and they would also assess to see the children, what are their needs, are there any gaps that children may have, especially considering COVID, where children may not have had as many opportunities to write as fluently when the children were at home. And so helping children to fill in any gaps that they've got for their handwriting development so they're on track for end of year expectations. Our new handwriting policy, which we introduced this academic year, started in the autumn term. We did this after trialling ways to support children with their handwriting. And then we determined what was the most effective way, what was having most impact on children being able to write at age-related expectations so that they would move on to high school and be high school ready by the time they finish primary school. So if I was to summarize some of the main points I'm going to share with you today, here are some top tips. The top tips that we say to children are, as they eventually learn how to join, especially in Key Stage 2, we would say join all letters. Just join all letters except capitals. By having this rule as a top tip, it means that it's easier for children to remember. Some different joined handwriting styles encourage children or people to take your pen off the page once you form certain letters and only join certain ones. We found this was quite confusing for children. They weren't clear when to join and when not to join. And in the end, they just generally weren't joining their letters, which is and the expectation of joining is within the national curriculum. So if we had the simple tip of just join all letters except for capitals and we teach children how to do that, that was easier for children to remember. We also use the language of teaching the children diagonal and horizontal joins, as you can see here. So I'm going to show you those, and children be very clear on understanding, especially in years 3, 4, 5, and 6, of what these joins look like. The diagonal joins, they're taught first. They're the main way of joining letters. All letters that end at the end of the line, they flick up to make a diagonal join. If I was to try to show you on the whiteboard an example, so bear with me. If I just show you here. So for example, many of the letters in the alphabet, and we actually go through these with our children, the letters end the line. For example, the letter A, it ends at the bottom on the line. So we teach the children to flick out when they are in year 1 and year 2. By the time they come into Key Stage 2, we say flick up and flick out, and this is the diagonal join. We'll try to write that clearly for you. So the letter finishes at the bottom. You flick up to make a diagonal line, a diagonal join. And so we teach children all letters that end at the bottom of the line that they would flick up. So for example, if I was to draw another line, C finishes at the bottom, D finishes at the bottom. So it would flick up to make a diagonal join. So does E. Let's leave F and G and H for now. Sorry, G. H does. H, you would have a diagonal join because it ends at the bottom on the line, you would flick up. I generally finish at the bottom, you would flick up. K, once you learn the cursive K, it ends on the line, you'd flick up. So we go through the lesson, we go to the children, they will learn letter formation when they were younger, but also once they're starting to learn to join their letters, we teach them about using diagonal joins for all letters that would end on the line. The formation of the letter ends at the bottom on the line, you would flick up to make a diagonal join. We also teach the children, so here is examples here. We also teach the children after that about the horizontal line as well. If I was to draw another line and to model, for example, some letters, only a few, when you complete the letter formation, they end at the top. So for example, the letter O ends at the top. For that, to join, you go across. So going across, that's our horizontal join. So for example, spelling the word out or the phoneme O. Sorry, that's my joined O. Let me just show you like that. There are certain letters, O, B, W, certain letters that when you form them, they start at the top. They don't end on the line. They would end higher up at the top, so you'd go across to join it. Otherwise, children bring a join back down. It no longer looks like an O. It no longer looks like the letter it's meant to. So we teach the children about when you would use the diagonal join and when you would use a horizontal join. Those are the main joins that we focus on, but we break them up into smaller steps of learning as well. So on the screen here, I just put my lid on. On the screen here, here's an example of what that joined handwriting would look like, joining all letters except for capitals. Okay. So our new handwriting policy, if I was to show you, by the end of their time in primary school, all pupils should be taught to, and here's a statement, a quote from the national curriculum in year 6, write legibly, so we have to be able to read their writing fluently, so keep going with the same sort of style throughout their writing, and with increasing speed. To do that, I have to choose which shape of letter they're going to use. So as the children getting older and they've learnt their joins, they may decide, actually, I like to form my F's like this, or I like to make my letters taller like this, or I like to have it slightly slanted, but they're developing that independence, developing the choice of the letters once they have learnt the joins. And they might even decide specifically at some point that they're not going to join every single letter as they go on to high school. However, we use a policy of join all letters except for capitals, so they know how to join. And as they get older, they may decide that's how they're going to develop that style of join handwriting. The main thing I would say for year 5 and 6 in terms of handwriting is a second statement where the children are encouraged to choose the writing implement that is best suited for a task. So for example, knowing whether they're going to use a pen or a pencil when they're drawing a science diagram, for example, if it's a science diagram and you've got to label the parts, even though you're writing, you don't have to label with a pen, you might be labeling with a pencil because it's a diagram. When you are writing a persuasive argument and you're pretending that you're writing to an audience and you're saying to your audience, oh, for extra information about this product, look at this website. And when you're forming the website, you might print the letters rather than joining the letters. And this goes back to this statement of choosing when to join the letters and when not, because a website address wouldn't usually be seen in join handwriting. So these slight differences of knowing when do I join, when do I not, when do I use a pen or when do I use a pencil, these independent choices would be the expectation for year 5, 6, and they should already be able to join by then. So why is handwriting so important in our school? We teach joint handwriting in Key Stage 2 at our school so that children meet age-related national expectations by the end of Key Stage 2. And they are high school ready. They are ready for the next part in their career in education. Additionally, we place importance on joint handwriting as a life skill. As children get older through Key Stage 2 and onto high school and even into adult life, the expectation is that they should be able to write with stamina and speed, so be able to keep going writing extensively. Not if you imagine that some children may even go on to a certain career or university where there's lots of note taking involved, they would need to be able to write at speed and legibly so they can make use of their writing. We want them to write more, we want them to write faster, to articulate their deeper understanding across the curriculum. So we wouldn't just have handwriting lessons where we want children to have correct letter formation and join writing. We want them to have good handwriting skills which they can apply across the curriculum so that when they come to another lesson, they can just focus on the skills which are relevant for that lesson. For example, science skills, and they're not worried about forming their letters correctly. That would just come naturally. They shouldn't be worried about writing a conclusion, a report, or making it their best handwriting in Key Stage 2. Joint handwriting should just come naturally. They can just focus on evaluating their scientific experiment in a science lesson. So to teach them the life skills, so they're more confident and independent as they go through the school, and so they are high school ready. We want our children to build writing stamina. So if children have to take their pen or pencil off the page every time they write a letter, it slows the process down slightly. So by forming and joining letters correctly, fluently and legibly, pupils have more mental space just to focus on developing on the content and the composition of their writing. If children can write letters, form letters correctly and join, and their handwriting isn't something they have to think so consciously of, they can spend more mental space focusing on, for example, their vocabulary choice, their sentence structure, the grammatical techniques which are needed for their piece of writing. So sometimes parents, we talk about writing and they will ask, well, how's my child doing in writing? Their handwriting is very neat. That's great. There are other aspects of writing we need to develop too, like their vocabulary, their sentence structure, their punctuation, their awareness of audience and purpose. How are they suiting the reason for their writing? So if they've got good handwriting skills, there's less mental space they have to think about that, and they can focus on the other aspects of writing. So our handwriting policy fits in line with national curriculum objectives set for each year group by the government. In early years nursery, the children focus on their pre-writing skills, mark making, enjoying drawing freely, adding some marks to their drawings which they give meaning to. So this line, I'm trying to draw this is meant to be my mother, or this here, that is a picture trying to show that dog. So their marks that they form are there to represent something in their mind that the children are trying to communicate. Children in early years will make marks on their picture to stand for their name. They attempt to write their name, and they use some of their print and letter knowledge as they're learning to form letters in their early writing. For example, writing a pretend shopping list that starts at the top of the page, or write for mummy. These would be expectations in nursery. So they may even write some or all of their name correctly in nursery. They may start writing some of their letters accurately. They're developing their fine motor skills in their hands in lots of different ways, not necessarily with just a pen or pencil, by lots of arts and crafts and lots of different activities. In reception, letter formation is related to the work they do on phonics. So as children learn each sound for each letter, they learn the wording that goes with forming each letter. They're encouraged to use a tripod pencil grip. So tripod using the 3 fingers, the thumb and the 2 fingers, so 3. The idea is that I'm trying to find the right, there you go. The thumb on one side, the finger on the top, and another finger at the side. So that's the correct tripod grip. Encouraging children from early years goals, expectation to be able to hold the pen or the pencil or the tool, often a crayon or a chunky pencil, correctly. Eventually in reception, being able to write a sentence which phonetically makes sense, writes recognizable letters, most of which are correctly formed. And in reception, we'd encourage children to be able to form some lowercase and capital letters correctly. That's the end of year expectation for reception for handwriting. For year 1 in particular, and this carries on going not just in year 1, but all the way through the school, we have a big focus on sitting correctly. If you have a look at the diagram below, sitting correctly at the table. That means both feet on the floor, all the legs of the chair on the floor, tucked in comfortably, not so that you are very squashed in, but your back up straight and comfortable, but tucked in and sitting up straight. One hand to write, one hand to write, one hand to balance. Obviously not up there, but on the desk there. Sometimes children, when they're writing, they might have a hand like this. That's not going to allow for good posture or best posture, and therefore it doesn't allow for best handwriting and letter formation. So if we have a look at the diagram there, which explains the things I've just pointed out, we also encourage the children to have their paper tilted slightly to the side. So if you're right-handed, then you tilt the top right-hand corner slightly up to the right so that you can form letters correctly. And if you're left-handed, as it shows in the diagram, the top left-hand corner will be tilted up slightly to the right, slightly to the top, sorry, so that you can form letters correctly. If you were to have your piece of paper like this whiteboard here, just straight across like that, then you've got quite a squashed body position. You need to allow your elbow to come out with whichever hand you use. So it's that room for the elbow and that body position, which is why we tilt the page slightly. So encouraging that with our children. It's also expected for children to form capital letters correctly, form digits from 0 to 9 correctly, and understand letter families. If I just rub this board out, and I'll show you what I mean by a letter family. So letters that are formed in similar ways. Your children will learn this in year 1. So for example, some letters all have, so like letters, they come down and round, down and round. Those are the same sort of formation. Some letters create anti-clockwise movement and they're rounded. Is that anti-clockwise movements? Some letters will all have, for example, descenders, letters that come down. So we'll have family groups, letters which are formed in similar ways. So straight lines, or channels, or anti-clockwise rounded. So from year 1, children and their families, so they're creating the same pencil control with the same types of letters. In year 2, the expectation is for children to form their lowercase letters the correct size in relation to one another. So the letters should be roughly the same size. By the end of year 2, in the summertime, children will start to use some of those diagonal and horizontal strokes so they could join. They don't have to join by the end of year 2. They could do if that comes naturally to them. But what I mean is if they were able to recognize, for example, in year 1, they're learning that when I form the H, I flick out. When I form the M, I'm going to flick out. So that's the lead out. In year 2, they would learn that all letters can have a lead in and a lead out. A lead in and a lead out. A lead in
and the lead out. And should they naturally feel like, oh, I think I can join those letters together, for example, if I know how all the lead ins and the lead outs go for those letters, then I can actually join them together, join all letters except for capitals. Sorry, that was a bit wonky on what I'm trying to write there. So in year 1, they learn the lead outs, in year 2, they learn the lead ins and the lead outs. By the end of year 2, they might be confident to join them. They don't have to. It's a great expectation they would, but they don't have to. But by the time they're in year 3, yes, we'd be explicitly teaching the diagonal joins and horizontal joins, so they are able to join in key stage 2. Going back to year 2, the expectation is to have spacing between words that reflects the size of the letter. So the idea is to have the form letters correctly, the consistent shape, consistent size, consistent gap between the spaces between each of the words, so that they're beginning to develop some sort of fluency in their handwriting style, even though it's not joined, just lead in and lead out. In year 3, I'll just move myself up the way there. In year 3 and 4, the handwriting expectation is the same. That children are taught the diagonal and horizontal strokes that are needed to join letters, which I've showed you, and understand which letters, when adjacent to each other, are best left unjoined. And that's a comment from the national curriculum. We as a school say we're joining all letters. We're joining all letters except for capitals, so that children know those rules and can use them. Increasingly, the legibility, the consistency, and the quality of the handwriting. For example, by showing that the downstrokes letters are parallel. So we want them to have, for example, if they were forming the letter H, not that you have a word like that with 2 letters together. But you see, we're trying to ensure that the height of the letter same, and then the same direction. They've got the straight vertical lines, so there is consistency in the letter formation from one letter to another, and that the letters are parallel. We don't have one letter which is formed straight and another one which is diagonal. We want the lines, the strokes to be parallel. That encourages that neatness and the ability to read what someone else has written. Just one minute. Sorry about that. Last point there for year 3, 4, the expectation is that the ascenders and descenders to try not to touch. I just model what I mean there. So for example, sometimes you may have some words which have descenders, so letters coming down, and then the line underneath you've got some other words which have ascenders, so lines perhaps coming up. And you're trying to ensure that they don't crash together, but there's even space and the letters are clearly from the ascenders, as it says here. That's the ascenders and descenders of letters do not touch. So by year 5 and 6, national expectation is that children should be able to join. For different reasons, sometimes children may not be able to join fluently at this stage. It may be because of COVID, they've not had the opportunity to write as much. It may be that they're newer to the school, and in their old school they learn a different way, or newer to the country, they're learning the English language. It might be they have a specific learning need and they find letter formation quite difficult with their fine motor skills. There are different reasons why children may or may not be meeting those expectations, but we identify them at school and we support children to be able to meet those national year intermediate expectations. But generally speaking, year 5 and 6 children should be able to join letters by the time they come into year 5 6 and use fluent joint handwriting, which is legible, so that they can write, as it says here, with some speed and developing their own handwriting style, but generally the policy of joining all letters except for capitals. They would choose whether they're going to use pen or a pencil for their diagram, for their captions, their label, to write that email address. And here are just some examples which I've copied and pasted for you of end of year expectations. This is what you may expect some year 5 or year 6 handwriting to look like. These are some particularly good examples. Obviously, children, they're still learning to join. They might not quite be ready. Sometimes handwriting can look a bit awkward. When you're learning to do something, it can look sometimes a bit messier before it gets neater. But we encourage children to practice with handwriting lessons every week at school. But by the time they're in year 5 and 6, that would be less and less. The expectation is they should be able to join. So how can you help at home? You could encourage with posture. We talked about the diagram before. Good posture, take the chair on the floor, one hand to right, one hand to balance, book tilted to the side if you're right-handed, book tilted to the side if you're left-handed, having that tripod grip with those 3 fingers, the thumb, and the 2 fingers, the thumb, finger, encouraging that. Some children, for example, writing like this in early years, it's quite difficult to write for a prolonged period of time like this. It would hurt the wrist. So the reason why the tripod grip is recommended, or opposed to the tripod grip, is you can get, for example, I write like that, and that's the correct tripod grip. I write like that. But using those 3 fingers, or the thumb and the 2 fingers, is that there's fluid movement in the wrist to write like that. Using, when they're very young and they start like that, when they may be writing like that, they won't be able to develop that writing in style. As they get older, they would learn the tripod pencil grip or the tripod pen grip. That's part of the expectation for early years starts. So encourage them to have that good posture, that good pen or pencil grip. Encourage them to use what they learn in handwriting lessons when they write at home. So they might be writing sentences about their spelling framework that they receive. They may be writing their CGP books. Have a look in there. I've got a copy for you on the side of reading levels. Children have a copy of a handwriting policy for your reference, for their reference. So for example, here this is this page we've got set at the end of year 2, where each letter has got a lead in and a lead C. There's a lead in, form letter B, and lead out. C, start on the line, form letter C, and lead out D. You start on the line, lead in, form letter D, up, down, and lead out. So whereas in early years they're developing mark making correct pencil hold, by year 1 they're developing their correct letter formation and learning to lead out. By year 2 they're expected into year 2 to go to correct letter formation, correct posture, correct tripod pencil grip, and lead in and lead out. In year 3 and 4, the expectation is that children should learn the voice. They should be able to join the handwriting, though they may need support with that. They may need further practice and encouragement. In year 5, if they've been at the school for a reasonable amount of time, the expectation is they should be joining fluently, developing their own style. Please talk to your children about what they've been learning at school with handwriting, so that they're in line with natural expectations. If you have any further questions, but you may go to your class teacher, your child's class teacher at the first point. Otherwise, contact the school if we can help in any other way. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your support, and thank you. Bye bye.